I recognized the 12-ounce paper cup instantly, as it was just like the ones you would typically get from a vending machine, except there weren't any such machines at the motel that I was aware of.
Really? Do you own the place, man? I'm trying to clear my throat because I woke up 15 minutes ago. We're doing this differently. You see how I'm drinking my little coffee right here? Okay. SCP-294 today. The coffee machine. I don't know anything about it, but it's probably going to eat people or something crazy like that. That's what SCPs do, right? Not all of them, but just to say, it's a mix between horror and SCP, which we really don't get a whole lot of right here. And I'm happy to say I love when those two mixes, because it's like the perfect mix, because it's the perfect thing for my channel, right? My channel is horror and SCP. This is horror and SCP all in one. It's so perfect. But honestly, I love all the SCP stories, but this is really great. And what's really cool about it too is it's not one of our typical SCP animators. It's animated horror flicks, which usually does some really, really good animations. One of my favorite animators, actually, and does sequential videos. And this is chapter 1. So I'm guessing that we're going to get more than that. He's never really done SCP content before, so I'm excited to really check out his stuff. I hope you are too. Make sure to head over to his channel, subscribe to him, hit the notification bell, and if you like morning reaction videos like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well, guys. Let's get into the animation. Nightmare at the Motel, Chapter 1, A Cup of Joe.
Although this happened back in the early 90s, I still remember it quite vividly.
Okay.
I guess it's just one of those experiences that left a lasting impression, and rightfully so. It all took place in the space of a single night at the motel I used to own.
All right.
Business was slow, and it seemed like just another typical Friday evening, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Admittedly, I hadn't thought it through when I bought the place just a few years before, but I got it at a decent price, and despite being next to a remote highway, there were a few clubs and a naval base nearby that brought in a fair share of additional guests.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
I've decided to come forward with this story now because I recently resold the motel, and I no longer have to worry about mentioning anything that could scare any new potential guests away.
Wow. when you know, it's bad when you have like this thing in you that says, you know, I have to be honest with people. I have to tell them up front about something. You ever had to sell something like a car or a house or something or a boat and say, listen, before you buy this, they got this and this and this and this wrong with it? It's like you got to try to dress it up, but at the same time, you want to be a good person, and you just don't want to sell somebody something that has something wrong with it without them knowing. Like, listen, it's got a pretty mean oil leak, man. I'll probably put a quart in this thing a week just to let you know, to kind of give them an idea. It doesn't make it, it doesn't make it real sellable at that point. But at the same time, it's really hard. That's probably why I wasn't a real good car salesperson, man, because I would point out the wrong things and stuff because I wanted to be so honest with customers. And it just don't work like that. You can't just say all the good stuff about it and get away with it. I'm pretty sure that he had a hard time selling this motel. He probably had to take a big price cut on it if there was something real wrong with it.
I still find it a bit strange how it didn't make the news back then, and there has been no mention of it throughout the years. But I'm thankful that it didn't for the sake of the motel's reputation. I guess the authorities did a good job of keeping the whole thing quiet for whatever reason. It all started with a visit from one of the guests in room 203. I don't remember her name, but she seemed strangely familiar, and I was pretty sure she had stayed at the motel before.
Okay.
She complained about not having any running water in her room. I apologized for the inconvenience and told her that I would send someone to take a look and that he would be there shortly. This brings us to the guy that was staying in room that was now 209. His name was Joe, and although he had a few run-ins with the law in the past, mostly for contraband and things like that, I recognized his talent for fixing things, so I offered to let him stay at the motel free of charge and offer a couple of meals a day in exchange for maintaining the place.
Wow.
And to keep things running smoothly. The arrangement worked out pretty well for the both of us,
I guess so.
I could always count on him to get the job done quickly.
That's a heck of a wage, man. Listen, we'll let you live here. I mean, it's a hotel, right? It's not like your own apartment because it's usually much smaller. Even if it's a suite, it's usually much smaller. But think about how much it costs to live. Like, I'm in a very, very good situation here, guys. We own our own home. It's not much, but it's ours. We own our own land, and we don't have a whole lot of, I guess you could say, bills. You know, cost of living is much lower for us now. But I remember when it wasn't. I remember when I was in apartments and stuff, and oh boy. And we went, this is in southern Louisiana too, where cost of living is relatively low. So are wages, so to speak, but you go up into some places like $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Psh, yeah, that's, I mean, for us, that's a lot of money, dude. If I had to spend $1,000 a month, you better believe I'd live in a free hotel room.
So I headed on over to his room to let him know about the issue with the running water.
Okay.
I would usually call him on his phone, but I wanted to express how urgent it was since I didn't want to keep the guest waiting and I wanted to make sure he got the message. As I approached the far end of the motel, I almost knocked on the wrong door since the room that used to be 209 had been restricted to staff only for reasons that I'll get into a little later.
Okay.
It was at that moment I experienced a weird sense of deja vu, and that's when I remembered the girl from room 203. Samantha, her name was. She had stayed at the motel before, in the room directly below. It was kind of surprising to see her back at the motel after what happened, but I guess it made sense why she specifically asked for a room at the other side of the motel, most notably on the second floor. I glanced over towards Joe's room, and the first thing I noticed was that the TV was on, but the lights were out.
Alright.
This was a bit unusual because he would usually leave the lights on when he was watching TV. Granted, it was a minor detail, but it's the kind of thing you pick up on after you've known someone for a while.
Joe,
I knocked on the door repeatedly, but there was no answer.
Dude, it sounded like it was
I
coming
felt frustrated, but at the same time, I wasn't too quick to judge.
Sounded like somebody was knocking on my window right there. It kind of freaked me out.
Come to think of it, I hadn't seen him since the day before, which was also very odd. I decided to cut him some slack and deal with the situation myself. I approached Samantha and explained that I was unable to find someone to fix the water right away and instead offered her the room next door. I could tell she wasn't all that pleased, but she quickly moved past it by asking if I had change for $1. Albeit out of the blue, I quickly obliged and gave her some of the loose change I had in my pocket. It seemed like the least I could do, all things considered. I fetched the keys to the room next door, and after I unlocked and opened the door to her new room, she approached me holding what appeared to be a fresh cup of coffee. I recognized the 12-ounce paper cup instantly, as it was just like the ones you would typically get from a vending machine, except there weren't any such machines at the motel that I was aware of.
Really? Do you own the place, man? Did she go to a little gas station or something? I don't think so. You might have a rogue coffee machine on your hands.
A few moments later, when I finally got back to the front desk, I noticed that someone had left a note. This was actually quite common back then because I was always fairly short-staffed and I couldn't be at the desk the whole time, so I encouraged the guests to leave a note if I happened to be away. I don't remember it word for word, but it was another similar complaint regarding a lack of running water and that they expected it to be fixed by the time they got back.
What the heck is going on?
What was even more intriguing, though, was the short comment at the end of the note stating something about coffee from a vending machine having a vile taste and that they were expecting a refund, signed The Sailors. I started to feel increasingly more frustrated knowing that Joe wasn't available and I was getting complaints about running water and a vending machine that I didn't even know about. What I did know, however, is that I was in for a long night and that I needed to fix the issue with the water before the sailors got back, and if you're wondering who the sailors are, it's kind of a nickname for a group of guys who would usually book between 3 to 4 rooms before heading out to one of the nearby clubs. They could be quite loud at times, and the cleaning lady would always complain about the mess they would make, but it's not like I could ask them to stop showing up.
Right.
They were regulars after all.
Like some sailors.
It was at that very moment that Samantha appeared again at the desk. My initial assumption was that she was there to complain about the coffee as well, but instead she mentioned that the new room that I had provided her with also had no running water.
Wow.
I apologized again and explained that it was more serious than I had originally thought, which was preceded with an awkward silence.
Now, before you start offering out other rooms, I know you wouldn't think that there would be problems throughout the hotel, but it seems like you would have just checked that, right? Like, let's say you're a customer and say, hey, the last room that we were in had dirty sheets. and you say, I apologize. Your housekeeping staff is not there, right? You say, I apologize. Let me get you another room. You'd be damn sure to check them dang sheets before you let them in. Just to say, you don't want the problem to happen twice. All it takes is going in and just hitting the faucet right quick and say, yeah, looks like the water works in here. Make yourself at home. Enjoy your stay. You know? Kind of weird, bro.
I felt compelled to say something, so I decided to ask her about the coffee. She smiled, probably thought I was being a jerk for changing the subject, and told me it was actually one of the best coffees that she had tasted in a while.
What?
We both kind of laughed it off, and I told her that I would make it my top priority to fix the water issue right away. I actually thought she might check out and demand her money back at that point, not that I could blame her, but fortunately she said okay, and headed back to her room.
So why didn't you ask where the coffee machine was?
Maybe the coffee vending machine wasn't such a bad idea, after all. Still,
yeah, where was
the issues facing the motel weren't going to fix themselves, no matter how good the coffee was, so I decided to head back to Joe's room to find out what was up. It was at the foot of the stairs that led to his room that I saw something in the corner of my eye.
The coffee machine?
I knew the motel like the back of my hand, so I was always quick to notice when something was out of place or different, and that's when I saw it for the first time. An odd-looking vending machine tucked away in the corner. I had never seen anything quite like it as far as vending machines go. I mean, it had a keyboard and a monitor for starters, and it appeared to be a white label product because there was no sign of a brand name or logo, which got me thinking maybe this whole thing was Joe's idea.
Huh.
Out of curiosity, I inserted 50 cents into the machine and simply typed in coffee, and after just a few seconds it produced a 12-ounce cup of hot coffee. The aroma was pleasing, and it tasted surprisingly good, which was contradictory to what was mentioned in the note.
Huh.
At that point, I strongly suspected that Joe had fallen asleep in front of the TV, and what better way to wake him up than with a fresh cup of Joe, I thought. So I went back up the stairs and approached his room.
Okay.
I banged on the door considerably louder this time in the hope that it would wake him up, but I still didn't get any response, so I slowly turned the door handle. It was quite common for Joe to leave his door unlocked, so I wasn't surprised to see the door unlatch and open slightly.
There's Joe.
Joe, hey buddy, are you in there? I brought you some coffee. My optimism was hastily met with an eerie silence and an uncanny feeling that something wasn't right.
Oh no.
And I will never forget what I witnessed moments later as I slowly pushed the door open wider.
Dang, Joe! What happened?
I called 911 right away, and neither the paramedics nor the police could explain the cause of death, only that he had lost a significant amount of body mass.
Wow.
Just when I thought the night couldn't get any stranger, the mysterious coffee vending machine vanished without a trace. The only good news was that the running water at the motel suddenly returned to normal, and I didn't receive any further complaints from any of the guests. It's hard to believe that after just a short time owning the motel, there had already been 2 deaths, and although the previous one was of apparent natural causes, it too entailed a string of unexplained occurrences that led to the exclusion of room 209 and the room below it. But that's another story for another time.
Dude, what the heck? So I dug into SCP-294 a little bit deeper on the wiki, and outside of looking like a regular coffee machine with a keyboard on it, it actually delivers any liquid that a person requests. All you got to do is put in 50 cents and you get any liquid that a person requests. Now, it actually pulls the liquid from somewhere else. So there has been some crazy tests done, a bunch of them that is talked about in the wiki. But what's happening in this story is the reason that Joe lost body mass is because when people were asking for a cup of Joe, it was literally taking Joe's body mass and liquefying it to serve to people. That's why the sailors said that it was a vile cup of coffee, because it was actually liquid Joe, the maintenance guy. That's horrible and hilarious all at the same time. Some of the addendums on this on the SCP wiki talk about people asking for things like the perfect drink and them getting a variation of a drink that they got in one of their most fond memories. Someone asked for the blood of Christ. Someone asked for precious materials like gold and has gotten liquid gold. And they've also asked for materials that were not available in a liquid form like diamond, which the machine has not been able to get out of, able to produce because they don't come in a liquid form. But they've asked for a bunch of crazy stuff, guys. The list goes on and on with all the addendums. It's actually a pretty good read if you want to check out the SCP Foundation's wiki to go a little bit deeper into this. This was a really great story. I hope y'all enjoyed it, guys. If you did, make sure to subscribe to Animated Horror Flicks right here. He's got a lot of great videos that I've already watched, and some that I reacted to. They're gonna be right here if you like those type of reactions, guys. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off, and we'll see you next time. Break it down.